Hey everybody, Questwise here, and today we are back at the library. Welcome to the Library of Doom, where we're going to talk about two different products, completely unrelated to each other. But I love picking up weird and small press games and products and giving them a whirl, give them a read, add them to my library of games. And these are two that I dug out of the bookshelves yesterday and revisited them. And two of them that really stand out to me and I think are very interesting, and probably never got quite the attention that they deserve. So first, let's start with Ingenium first, because this is a little bit easier to talk about than the Maze of Screaming Silence. So Ingenium is a game that I bought on the secondhand market, simply because I thought it looked really cool. In fact, I got the entire catalog of the time. This is actually put out by Silver Gryphon Games. They are still, at the time of this video, time of the filming of this video, still in production. In fact, I just started a new Kickstarter for a game called Aethermancy. And at the time that I bought these, I bought the entire catalog of what they had, which was a game called Aether. It had its own rule system and was kind of a modern day, twisty, time travel-y, dimensional travel-y, magical thing. But this also came with this, which was a completely independent, standalone fantasy role-playing game. And I was kind of actually blown away by this. I was really surprised by this small game. And this is this very small game. It clocks in at about 96 pages. And that includes the index. What I find really interesting about this game is it kind of reminded me of Palladium Fantasy in a way. Just from the way it's sort of presented and the way that it looks, some of the artwork was very reminiscent of Palladium Fantasy. It's almost kind of it's not anime-esque, but sort of cartoon-esque in certain degrees. But still very well done, very evocative of the settings that it's trying to portray. And what that setting is very high fantasy, high heroic fantasy role-playing. And by that, I mean that you don't, when you create a character, you don't start off as, like in D&D, where you actually start off as a very lowly first level character with just a few hit points. You actually start off as a hero. The whole idea of this game is that you start off heroically and are able to do heroic things, because that's the reason you're playing the game. Take it over on the back here, and I'll read to you the back of this a little bit. The cool shamanesque looking character, and it says, A life of adventure awaits those bold enough to seek it out. Ingenium is a fantasy system unlike any other. The core three-word list system lets you build a starting character in under 5 minutes. And the accompanying talent pools mechanic allows you to build just about any kind of character you can imagine. So a little blurb on the back of there, but it does. It's so example of the three-word system, and it's sort of there was another game out there that this really reminds me of you just choosing. Yeah. The Cypher system, I believe, does the same kind of thing. You choose a sort of three-word term for your character as well. And this, when did this come out? This is not super old. Looks like this game was created in 2005. No, maybe not. 2010, actually, so it's only about 8 years old. But the three-word system lets you create characters like the half-wolf blade master who uses magic to enhance his swordsmanship, an elven ruin mage whose only desire is to crush the world of men. So you're kind of putting together three phrases, and that defines what your character is, and then you get bonuses for those things as well, too. Let me show you that a little bit as well, too. There's some very unique races in here, as well as some of the traditional stuff as well. The artwork on this is very nice. It's very, like I said, it very reminds me a lot of some of the Palladium stuff. And here's your three words, and when you choose your word, it gives you these bonuses that you would get to different attributes. So if you chose agile, you would get your primary statistic would be dexterity. Your secondary would be awareness, that kind of thing like that. So it gives you bonuses based on that. So the races are human, dwarf, elf. These are pretty standard. Then gargoyle. It's an interesting one. Gargoyle there. Half wolf, which is these creatures here. And then there's wing folk, which again, very high fantasy-esque. Cat folk, which are interesting. You see a lot of this in kind of D&D type of thing as well too. And then you have your profession. So there's assassin. Some of these are going to be pretty interesting, or pretty standard as well too. Bandit, bard, battle medic, and there's tons of these in here. Priest, inquisitor, paladin, soldier, Templar, warlock, wizard. So some that are interesting, some that are pretty standard fare as far as fantasy goes. Again, it uses hit points, talent pools, that kind of stuff. It's a dice pool system. Very interesting how it's put together. Like I said, very high fantasy. I looked online for this. Looks like this was probably still available on their website over at Silver Gryphon Games. So if you'd like to get a copy of this, it doesn't look like it should be too awful hard to get a copy of. Very interesting. A lot packed into the small little book. Magical spells all broken up by sort of domain, air, darkness. So interesting that you can kind of blend the two together, different aspects together and stuff as well too. So life, is like healing magic. Yeah, very interesting. Poison spells. Lots of good stuff in here. Awarding experience. So it does have a small section on monsters and challenges and stuff and awarding experience. The only thing about this book that I didn't like was the fact that it introduces some very unique monsters. Some of them pretty standard. Bandit, everybody can get ahead of that. But a blackberry cat, a Canarix, Cartizan. There's no pictures of this. While the rest of the book has this really amazing artwork, there was never any art drawn up for any of these creatures. Not a single one. So you get a little bit of description on each one, but it's really, on some of them, it's really hard to imagine what these creatures would look like. Now, on one side, that lets you sort of use your imagination and kind of create your own monsters. But at the same time, when you're doing this kind of thing and you're, running a fantasy game, there's nothing to compare those things to. There's no goblins or anything. So there's these very unique creatures, but none of them have any sort of art or even, it's outlines of what they might look like at all, other than just a small description. So that's Ingenium. It's a fantasy role-playing game by Silver Gryphon Games. So it does have its own proprietary system, but it's very fast, it's very fun, and very cool. I really enjoy this game a lot, though I don't ever get to play it very much at all. Next on the docket today is one of my all-time favorite products that I've ever purchased. It is the Maze of Screaming Silence. This came out, I bought this at a very small local game store that no longer exists. This was years and years ago. This came out, it is published to be used with 3rd edition D&D. Okay, it was made by Monkey God Enterprises, and when I look them up today, it doesn't look like they exist any longer. It was made for the D20 system. But I have high hopes of, and I've used this, aspects of this for 4th edition when I used to run some 4th edition games at the local game store. But I have high hopes of taking this back off the shelf and converting it over to 5th edition. I think it would be very easy to do since it's already sort of created for the D20 system. It is, as it says at the very bottom, contains graphic depictions of truly unpleasant things. Discretion is advised for younger and less disturbed readers. This was written by James Thompson. This thing is amazing. Now, to be honest with you, when I purchased this, like I said, several years ago, small local game store. It was on, had just happened to be on the shelf. At the time, that game store carried a lot of very unique stuff, and third edition, excuse me, third edition had a lot of third-party publishers that were doing some not so amazing stuff. The reason I stopped and this thing that captured my attention was this piece of artwork right here. Okay, one of my all-time favorite fantasy artists, William O'Connor. This is a piece of his art, and he's very distinctive fantasy art style. And so, this caught my eye from across the showroom of the store. When I got this home and started to read this, that's when this thing truly blew me away. It is very true. This thing is meant for adult readers. There are depictions of torture and murder and mayhem and child abuse. There's subjects of slavery, of incest. There's a lot of stuff packed into this book. And this book's about the same as Ingenium. It is exactly 96 pages, so they are exactly the same number of pages. But stacked throughout this book as well is more art by William O'Connor himself, even little chapter headings and stuff. But this is just an adventure. Adventure path. Let's take a look at the back of this. Journey to the city of the damned. High up in the mountains called the Wall of the World, where the air grows scarce and the dome of the sky draws close, one may find the cruel and mysterious empire of Yaga Kong. The Yaga Kong rule a vast dominion of gorges, crags, deep hidden valleys, and desolate plateaus. It is said that they worship death and keep the bodies of their ancestors in their homes with them. They know many horrible secrets, use fantastical machines, and fiendishly potent sorceries. No one really knows why they are so cruel. Perhaps the thin air and cold has driven them mad, or perhaps it is the crazed, wormed gods that they revere. Their realm is full of mysteries. So you are adventurers. This is made for 3rd to 4th level characters. I would say that's probably a little bit low. Maybe for 5th edition standards. I don't know. I haven't tried it with 5th edition. It says this is made for 3rd edition, and it's designed for 3rd to 4th. I kind of think that might be a little low. There's some stuff in here that's pretty tough, and you get bombarded with it pretty heavily. So you're traveling up these mountains, and the idea is that there's these crazy people. They have lived. There's a picture of one of them there, Yaga Kong. Conceptually, they're very much like the Mongols that lived in a sort of frozen steppes. And it gives you a nice introduction into the empire of the Yaga Kong and their background and their belief systems, the gods that they worship. The gods they worship are very Lovecraftian, the worm gods. They're these very crazy, horrible things. All of the characters that you meet, the non-characters, have funny, weird names, and it's very Deliverance kind of stories, Little Twig, Old Ugly, and they do live up to these descriptions as well too. So Little Twig is just a little kid. Let's see what its descriptions. It doesn't really give you much of a description here, at least not on this page. But, little skinny-ass little kid, horribly famished kind of thing. But the landscape is very frozen, it's twisted, it's high up in the mountains. So there's rules in here on how the effects of lesser amounts of oxygen affect your characters, and how that causes your endurance to drop, as well as it's hard to heal. Sometimes you suffer mental effects from these types of things. But yeah, there's very great stuff. So here you reach the city of the damned. As you can see, it's built into the side of this mountain crag kind of thing. But eventually you get up there and you get captured by these Yaga Kong, and when you do, they have this cruel thing that they do to everybody who comes up. And that is that you have to face the labyrinth. That every year their worm gods are demanding of some great, this artwork I love William O'Connor stuff. It's so great. But but they demand that the god of the maze must be he must be sacrificed to every year. And a lot of times, these people sort of inbred. There's no other people that really come up here, challenging the maze. They force you, in order to go into the maze of Screaming Silence, and there's a map of it and everything, to face the beast. And basically, you have to appease the beast in order for their society, their city, to be safe from the beast coming out and killing all of them. That's what they believe. And nobody's ever gone into the maze and ever come back out alive. And they believe that's a good thing. They believe that the monster has been appeased and he's had sacrifice to, and that they're safe for another year. The idea is that you would go in and survive the maze and come back out and be, champions, if you would. But this also angers the Yaga Kong as well, too, if you've killed their sort of the beast in the mountain, their god that lives within the thing. It's a very... I don't want to give too much away if you guys want to check out this out, but the beast is very kind of a traditional idea, if you know anything about the mythology of mazes and stuff. But very, very good. Like I said, some very dark themes in here about child abuse and about incest and inbreeding in small communities. There's torture and slavery and stuff as well too. Mistreatment of different people, but very, very evocative, very, very cool. This could be dropped into anything, any sort of campaign world. You just need a sort of isolated mountain range, and you can drop this in there anywhere. This could be hidden. This small civilization could be hidden in any sort of frozen thing. I think I might drop it into some Forgotten Realms stuff. Who knows? I might even try to build. I've actually thought about maybe building an entire campaign system around this idea. The sort of dark fantasy idea. This is out of print now. It's a little bit hard to find. The only place I did find it was on Amazon, and it was going for about $30. The original retail price, I think, was only probably like $18. So, but Monkey God Games, Maze of Screaming Silence, and Ingenium. So keep this in mind too if you're looking for something kind of fun. Retail on this one was I have no idea. And like I said, I got it on a secondary market. So. Silver Gryphon Games does still exist, and they're about to launch a new Kickstarter for a different game system, but I think might still be available. Ingenium, very, very cool stuff. Hey, everybody, thank you so much. I wanted to just touch on some cool, sort of old school, not really old school, but older products that have found their way to my shelves. You guys have maybe never ever seen before. I've never seen reviews of any of this stuff before, so I hope you enjoyed what you saw today. And next time we do a video, we're going to start a series on world building. We're going to do a series on different types of established world settings and how you can use them to build your own world settings. And as a favor to my friend David Dishington, I'm going to start with Talislanta and give you my thoughts on this world setting and using this to help you improve your own world building, or to just use this as a world setting as well too. But that's next time. Everybody, I'm Questwise. Thank you so much for watching, and I am out.